Bourbon and the Blues. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Yes, welcome back to Bourbon and Baseball. I've been down for a while and I've missed presenting and talking with the fans about different topics. But hopefully, we can restart again with a special program that I've wanted to do for a long, long time. But, life's been getting in the way. Anyway, that program focuses on the Mississippi Delta and its partnership with bourbon and that special genre of music called the blues. The blues grew up from the Civil War in America, and bourbon found its beginnings long, long before that. Yeah, the music called the blues comes from the Deep South along the Mississippi River Delta. The sounds of that music comes from the slaves. Homemade lyrics they were, made after the hard work that went from sunup to sundown was done. Work like picking cotton, tobacco, and sugar cane. It was a life of much hardship, little reward, and not much hope. Its melodies and lyrics fused well with their slavery. They used that music as a spiritual release from the hard labor that never, ever ended. And when the war ended in 1865, and the 13th Amendment said slavery was no more, the conditions in the Southland were not much better and probably worse than they were during the war. The north wind had blown hard on the South, and it was not much more than a wasteland ravaged by 5 long years of total war, poverty, and disappointment. That was the norm. Prior to the Civil War, agriculture was the main economic engine of the South. And the great plantations and farms depended on slave labor. And they became very, very, very rich using that free resource. Yes, when Mr. Lincoln said you are free, he unfortunately never got the chance to say what comes next. There was no jobs, no money, no homes. However, the South still knew that the most obvious way of surviving in this very different world is still going to be agriculture and farming. So a methodology was devised where those ex-slaves would still be used to work the fields, pick the cotton, pick the sugar cane, but now they would actually share in the profits of the landowner. And from this came the birth of sharecropping. The bottom line was slaves were now free, but they still worked from morning till sundown in a binding situation that very few ever escaped from. They were not really slaves, but they were not really free either. So from this music of the South, called the blues, that was based on raw emotion and hardship, came a drink to make life a little more tolerable. Moonshine became bourbon, and with its dark color, its sweet aroma, its warmth, its forgetfulness in every glass, and its ability to make a bad situation a little better, bourbon became the drink of choice in the converted slave shacks now called juke joints, and the bars that sprang up all along the Delta, along the mighty river that flowed beside it. Bourbon did mix very well with the blues, and the slide guitar, the harmonica, the piano, and the tenor sax, along with that wailing sound that the local musicians played music by. Music of the soul. Yeah, that special music and drink provided a much needed release on those Saturday nights all along the Delta. Well, the blues started in the Mississippi Delta, but it spread. It spread from there to Chicago, to Memphis, to St. Louis, to New Orleans, Austin, and further, all throughout the land. There were the legendary bluesmen like Muddy Waters, Son House, John Lee Hooker, and probably the most famous bluesman of all time, Mr. Robert Johnson. All of them came from the Delta. Legend has it that Mr. Johnson sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads outside of Clarksdale, Mississippi, to become the best guitar picking blues man there ever was. And you know what? Most people agree that he was the best there ever was. So, bourbon, or the devil's whiskey, as it's sometimes fondly called, along with that music called the blues, grew up together and still travel hand in hand in the juke joints, in the high-end lounges, and the blues clubs all across the USA and Europe also. Well, that about wraps up our tale today. We certainly hope that you enjoyed our little journey into the music and the drink that has become so much a part of our culture and our history. If you liked our presentation today, please ring that bell, give us a thumbs up, and always comment. We love comments. If you want to do some, we would glad to get them. And we thank you, and we'll see you soon. And Bourbon and Baseball will be back. Okay, folks, have a great day. Bye-bye.